Hello, Ghouls and Ghouls. Welcome back to another episode of Twisted Manor. I am your host, Shai and Emily, and with me we have my beautiful co-host, Emily, my wife. Say hello.
Hi, everybody.
Well, yeah, welcome to episode 5. I came up with the title for this, but I wasn't sure I like it. The Haunting of Twisted Manor. I don't like it. What do you want to call it? Well, our theme is poltergeists, so maybe we'll just call it that. We'll figure it out. You'll see the title and click on it, so we'll have figured it out by that point. Well, before we get started with our show today, we do have some updates. Just as I said previously, we're going to just say the same updates for the next couple episodes, just so that it's well established and everyone knows. So, our first update is that we have an Instagram at Twisted Manor, and we have a link tree in our bio. So if you click that link, it'll take you to multiple links. One of the ones that will be there is our website, so you can listen to us online if you don't have Spotify or Apple Podcasts. The second link that we have on there is Telenym. So if you guys want to share scary stories that are like kind of short, then we will share them at the end of every episode. We haven't gotten any new submissions, so we're not going to be reading anything for this episode, but keep sending them in and we'll keep telling them at the end of every episode.
Another link included in there is for our merchandise, and we just got some new designs. We got Blood Vessel, Frostbite, Boo Bitch, Berry, and Stay Cool Ghoul. So definitely go check those out.
I've already ordered the Blood Vessel t-shirt and a Twisted Manor cap, so those should be coming in by next episode. I'm very excited for those. I can't wait to wear it on set. Next, we did pull up a poll onto our Instagram story for charity. So, as we've discussed in the past, if you guys buy merchandise or donate to the link below of every episode, then 20% of the proceeds go to a charity of your choice. So we put up a poll of 2 charities. For this month, we let you guys decide whether you wanted to do animal welfare or the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation. So both very worthy causes. If you guys want to vote on which charity we'll be donating to this month, then go ahead and vote, and we'll let you know how much we earned and how much we're donating. So thank you guys so much for your support. Lastly, this is the last update for this episode, and that'll be, we do have images that we share on screen on YouTube, and if you guys decide to only listen to us, thank you so much, but we don't want to make you guys feel left out. So we do post our images on Instagram at Twisted Manor. So if you guys want to stay in the loop and see what we're looking at, then you guys can always go to that site and you can see what we're showing. Okay, so that's our updates for tonight. Thank you guys so much for sticking around, and we will go ahead and start the show for tonight. How many stories do you have tonight, Em?
I have 2.
Cool, me too. Last time I did this all on my own as like a little bonus episode, so we've missed your voice. So you can go ahead and start first. As we've said previously, this is an episode all about poltergeists.
This first one is a story that I found online, so I don't know the author, but they titled it Eerie Attic. A few years back, I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Melbourne, Australia. It was my first time living on my own. The apartment block had been built back in the 1930s. I'd been there for a few months when I came home from work one day and went into the bathroom. I saw something strange. A wooden board, which had covered a hole in the ceiling that led to a small attic space, lay fractured in 2 pieces on the ground. I examined the pieces. The board was an inch thick, and it would have taken Bruce Lee to break it. I thought the landlord had sent someone to work on the attic. I was frozen stiff with fear. Someone is up there for sure, I thought. I emailed pictures to the landlord asking if anyone had been there, with an undertone of annoyance since she hadn't warned me. Her reply read, "Please call me as soon as you are able to." I called, and she explained that her last 2 tenants had the same thing happen. She promised to replace the board, and she did. A month later, I woke up one night around 4 a.m. My body was covered in goosebumps. It felt like someone was rubbing their hands on me. Everything was silent. but then I heard a dragging sound coming from above my head. It was as if someone was pulling a sack of potatoes. I froze, convinced someone was up there. There's no way an animal could make that sound. After 5 minutes, I worked up the courage to turn on the light, armed myself with a cricket bat, and walked to the bathroom. That's when I saw that the new board covering the hole was broken in two. I felt sick. The dragging sound had stopped, but I heard something else, whispering. The sound was clear and coming from the attic. It sounded like children's voices, and I could hear one sentence repeated over and over. It's your turn. It's your turn.
Fuck.
I switched on every light in the apartment to make things feel normal. It was 5 a.m. and dark outside. I watched TV to try to unwind, then a fuse blew. My pet parakeet, Dexter, whom I kept in the kitchen, usually never made a sound at night, but he started squawking like he was being strangled. I'd never heard him make those sorts of noises. He was screaming. I grabbed my car keys, ran out, sat in my car, and waited there until the sun came up. When I saw people walking their dogs, I was finally comforted enough to go back in. The front door was open, but I figured I might have forgotten to close it when I ran out. I went to the kitchen to check on Dexter, but he wasn't in his cage. I felt sick again. All my windows were closed, so I looked everywhere inside. When I walked to the bathroom, I heard splashing. Dexter was half drowned in the toilet. I took him out, washed and dried him. I was so confused. It was at 8 a.m. I called the landlord and gave her a watered-down version of the night. "Oh, wow. You heard the whispering, too," she said.
I would fucking kill my landlord.
I stayed in that apartment for another 18 months.
Jesus.
I heard the whispering on a few occasions, and twice the board covering the hole in the ceiling moved. Although I live elsewhere now, the landlord recently called. She said that her new tenants had begged to speak with me about some of the stuff that's been going on there. Forget it. It's their problem now.
Jesus, now I want to know what was up there. That's very unresolved.
I know. I would have hired a ghost hunter to go look in that hole. Has anyone looked in the hole?
The two things that I was thinking was one, animals always know better. They are always on point with what's going to happen. But in this case, it looks like he was screaming because he was being murdered. So I guess that kind of drove away a little bit. But the other thing was it reminds me of a story. I would love to do a whole episode on this, but it's a very short story, so we never fly by. But essentially, I don't remember where this was or when this happened. I think it was recently, 2012. Less than 10 years ago. But there was a lady who started renting out this apartment, and at some point she would come home and the door would be unlocked, right? And she'd be living here for a while, so this is very unusual because she always locks it. She has her routine, and it just kept happening day after day. So what she ended up doing was she put up cameras in her house to see what was going on, and one day she came home and the door was wide open. Right, and that's a little bit more unusual than regularly lately, yeah. Right? So she went to go check the cameras, and she sees this woman just walk into her house, right? And she freaked out. She called 911, and they told her to stay home, don't move, we'll be right there. So she goes, she hides on top of her bed, and she's holding her sheets tight, waiting for the cops to come. And then she realized something. She didn't watch the entire footage. So she didn't see the lady leave the house. And she heard a creak under her bed. And without hesitation, she jumped over her bed, ran out of the house, shut the door behind her, and she waited outside. Locked the door behind her and everything. The cops come home, and they arrest this lady who was hopped up on meth. And apparently, every night for the last 2 months, she would come into her house, go into her bed, and she grabbed her kitchen knife and drilled a hole in the mattress so that one day she could stab her from under the bed.
That's so freaky.
2 months this lady was under her bed. while she's sleeping.
How was she getting in every day?
I don't know, pick the lock or something. I don't know. So freaky. I've always hated that because it's true. I'll have to look it up and get some more details on it, but I've always hated that story. But yeah, that's freaky. I don't even know how I would feel about whispering in my attic all the time, especially if it's audible.
There's friendly ghosts, and most poltergeist stories you hear aren't friendly, but I'm gonna have beef with you. You try to kill my bird?
Also, you keep fucking karate chopping the wood in my attic.
Who closed my pee-pee hole? Ka-chop!
So for my first story, I'm going to start us off with the tale of the Greyfriars Kirkyard poltergeist. So Greyfriars Kirkyard is the graveyard surrounding Greyfriars Kirk in Edinburgh, Scotland. It is located at the southern edge of the old town, adjacent to George Heriot's School. Burials have been taking place since the late 16th century, and a number of notable Edinburgh residents are interred at Greyfriars, which just means they were buried there. The kirkyard is operated by City of Edinburgh Council in liaison with a charitable trust, which is linked to but separate from a church. Okay. So this real-life poltergeist encounter is all down to so-called George Bluedy Mackenzie, a man responsible for the death of 18,000 men who were opponents of Charles II, earning him the bloody nickname. One of the first reported encounters of poltergeist activity in the cemetery occurred in 1999, when a man disturbed the coffin of Mackenzie to find shelter. He was a homeless man who ended up in the tomb during a stormy night, and Mackenzie's coffin collapsed. The homeless man quickly bolted, terrifying another man who was out walking his dog through the cemetery, who reported seeing a man fleeing from a tomb covered in dust. It seems that the encounter awoke something in the tomb, because since then there have been numerous reports of poltergeist activity in the area, and at one stage the cemetery ended up closing to public visits. A ghost tour was set up so that members of the public could enjoy this poltergeist true story for themselves, and since then, more than 170 people have apparently passed out or collapsed during the tour.
Oh my gosh.
More than 350 visitors have been attacked, and numerous injuries, including broken bones, have been reported.
Oh my goodness.
Over the years, there have been numerous reports of hot spots, cold spots, cuts, bruises, and burns on witnesses' bodies, often under their clothing. Photographs have been taken of these marks, as well as many photographs of an unidentified shape in the tomb. There have been sightings of a white figure, unexplained smells, and auditory anomalies. Now, I looked up some of the photographs for this cemetery ghost. They are interesting. We'll put them up on the screen, and I'll have to show you later. But some of them are really hard to tell what they are because they're zoomed in and they have that red circle around it, is what I could find. But you can clearly see that there's a hunched over white shape, in the shadows, which is extremely weird. So, if you guys know what a mausoleum is, it's kind of like that. It's it's almost like a closed off gazebo is what this tomb looks like. Okay? And when they take these photographs in the tomb, you can see some shadows overlapping one another, indicating depth. But in between those shadows, you can see someone hunching out. And it's kind of hard to see, but it's this bald white figure, looking right at the camera. So I'll put those on Instagram and shoot them up on the screen. But very interesting stuff.
So weird.
Some of the auditory anomalies include knocking noises from underground and within the tomb itself.
You think maybe he awoke more than just the one dead guy?
It could be, but also it's a tomb, so he's the only one that could have been disrupted in that particular spot, because there's only one coffin in a tomb or a mausoleum, typically, unless there's a family.
I think a mausoleum is multiple and a tomb is one.
Yeah, so in the tomb, they usually only have one person, and in this case, it's very small. It's very easy to see what's in there. So I assume that's the only coffin that got knocked over and disturbed. Also, he was a mass killer. So it would explain like why it's so overly violent, breaking bones and stuff.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah.
Dead animals are often found unmarked in front of the Black Mausoleum. People have complained that an unseen apparition has pulled their hair, grabbed their legs and arms, and or hit them.
Oh my gosh.
One or two.
Getting abused by an invisible dead guy.
I know.
Leave me alone.
Can you imagine like just taking a nice stroll with your dog in this cemetery and then you just get punched in the neck? And you're looking around, there's nobody there.
He just like punches you in the nuts as you're walking by.
He's just like a dick ghost. Fucking bitch.
He's like not even like a murderer. He's just really mean.
Yeah, he's just an absolute ass. One or two have claimed to be possessed. The area has been exorcised twice, both times unsuccessfully. So this is still actually a ghost tour you could visit in Edinburgh.
That sounds awesome.
So maybe we'll take a trip sometime and go get punched in the nuts and neck. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, it's always, at least in that situation, it's a bit more like controlled. Like it's a tour. There's gonna be other people. You're not crazy.
Yeah.
It's a lot less scary when you're like home alone and things start happening and you don't know what to do because you live there.
Right. I think they did it really smart to like lock it off for a while until they figured out what to do with it, and they're like, let's make a controlled environment as a tour. Because there are some cemeteries, I can't remember where this one was. Maybe it's Montana. But there's a cemetery where people will just go in there and there's like a dead grave hand who will haunt people. There's a house that appears and disappears, flashing lights and all this stuff. And people just freak out and like never come back.
We should go there too.
Yeah, we should. Let's go see a headless grave man.
Because if I'm in the house and it disappears, do I disappear too?
Yeah, you just step out into space. It's just a black void outside.
It's like, well, time to leave. Where'd the world go?
There actually have been people that have gone into the house and then come out and turned around and it's just gone.
Yeah.
I'll have to find that story. That one's really interesting. Maybe we'll do a cemetery episode or something. But yeah. So that's my first story. The Greyfriars Kirkyard in Scotland. So, little taken away from your story because yours is a little like eerie and like first-hand account. This is like multiple accounts over the years. But yeah, you can going to share your second tale with us.
This next story that I have is like secondhand. So as we've shared in previous episodes, I've definitely experienced some things. And this is actually a story about my grandmother. So she lived in a house in Texas for a few years. And I've been to that house multiple times. And, it never really had that vibe. It always seemed kind of off. Maybe like before you go to bed at night, you triple check all the doors and windows kind of a place. And so she has a story that she's told me, and I probably can't do it justice, but it still definitely freaks me out to this day. So she started with little things being moved, maybe swearing that she could have put that spoon away and now it's in the living room. Maybe a door that she thought she definitely closed to keep the cat in is open and now she doesn't know where the cat is. Then it started to progress and it turned to indistinct voices and maybe like music or drumming, tapping and things a bit more tangible. And one week she went on vacation and she asked her daughter to check on the house while she was gone. And she got a phone call from her daughter, my aunt. And she said that when she went to go check on the house, the door wasn't locked. Even though she knows that my grandma would have definitely locked it. And she could hear voices where no one was. And she did like a real quick sweep of the house and didn't find anybody. definitely locked the door when she left and was super freaked out and refused to go back. And so she checked on it that one time.
Jeez.
So my grandma rushed home because she was worried that maybe someone was breaking into the house, even though it seemed that it was just the door that was open. And now definitely it's locked. So she came home, and the door was wide open this time.
Ugh, damn.
They cautiously approached the house, and there were, just starting right at the threshold, there was muddy footprints leading into the house. And every cabinet was open, every door was open. And so they didn't make it very far into the house before they waited inside their car and called the police. And the police checked, and there was no one inside, like no evidence of like forced entry or anything broken or missing. And you can guess that my grandma did not sleep well that night. She stayed up researching the history of her house and found that it was built on really sacred indigenous land. And so she believes that it was indigenous peoples in her house. Their spirits.
Because she heard multiple voices, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that makes sense.
She did not stay in that house long after. She moved as soon as she could.
That's scary. That's one of those things that I would love to have seen. Or like
Absolutely,
had a camera up or something to see like everything open, to see these like muddy footprints appear on the floor. That'd have been so interesting to like witness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's spooky. Okay, we're just gonna move along to our last story for tonight. Time now for the haunting of Maria Jose Ferreira. Sorry, her last name's a little hard to pronounce. Ferreira.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is in Brazil. Also, the city they live in is extremely hard for me to say. So, Jaboticabal. It's a long name, I know. So,
Jaboticabal.
Maybe.
Jaboticabal.
I'm
Say
probably
like
butchering. Jaboticabal.
Jaboticabal. Brazil.
Jaboticabal.
Sounds like a greeting.
So,
Jaboticabal.
Back in 1965 in Jaboticabal, Brazil, there was a normal family home for 11-year-old Maria Jose Ferreira and her family. But one day, things suddenly changed and things became anything but normal. The poltergeist activity all started out of the blue when falling bricks and flying stones materialized in the family home, coming seemingly out of nowhere. These rocks were a great weight, up to nearly 9 kilograms on one occasion, which I'm going to tell you is 19 pounds.
Yeah.
That is a lot. That's a huge rock. This is the other weird thing. They were also magnetic rocks and had other very odd properties, which I couldn't really find, but...
They were shaped like Dwight Eisenhower's face.
Yeah, it was just all like little rocks from inside the snow globes. Yeah. Later, it would be discovered that rocks would stop being thrown and her furniture was instead thrown around.
This is a strong ghost.
Yeah. After a week of the attacks, after the rocks only, the family started to realize that something evil was in their presence. The poltergeist activity grew more sinister and started not just throwing the bricks, but physically striking out at the family members.
Oh my goodness.
Soon after this, they called upon their local priest to help. He came to the Ferreira's home to investigate. He himself witnessed the flying rocks and other objects moving all by themselves, along with strange noises that came from nowhere, but were heard everywhere. He concluded that an exorcism was required to evict the evil within the Ferreira home, to which he soon carried out. The priest prayed for hours, but to no avail. The exorcism didn't outcast the evil spirit, nor did it ease any of the terrifying activity. Instead, the exorcism spurred on the poltergeist even more, and things became even more aggressive and scary. And this is when the furniture started getting thrown around, right after the exorcism. But it was little Maria who had the worst of the violent activity. Maria was attacked, and viciously so. Slapped, bitten, beaten, and more. She even had needles inserted into her skin by an unseen entity, embedded so deep within the skin they had to be removed by a doctor. And it was reported that Maria had over 50 needles removed from her ankle. And how they got there is a huge mystery. The poltergeist tried to suffocate her in her sleep, and her clothing even caught fire one night. Eventually, even Maria went to see a medium. It was found that she was subject to these attacks because of her actions in a previous life. It was thought that Maria had been a witch, but a bad witch, and that she was being attacked by a spirit that she tormented in her previous life. Maria sadly committed suicide at age 16 to put an end to the activity.
Oh my God.
And that was when everything stopped.
Everything stopped after she killed herself?
Everything stopped when she died.
That is so sad. Because, like, on like a... on every level. But I mean, like, one of the reasons that most people kill themselves is because they think that people will be better off without them. And in that case, it was true. Yeah. All because of some petty little bitch who died.
I don't know what the Brazilian culture is. I don't know if they believe in reincarnation. You know? But I feel like that's just, like, really hard to put on a child, you know?
Yeah, that's
like,
horrible.
You're living a whole new life. You may not even believe in reincarnation, and this lady's telling you it's all your fault because you used to be a terrible person.
Yeah, but, like, when you get reincarnated, like, some people have, like, experiences where they're like, I remember this from a past life.
Right.
But most people don't. Most people think this is their one and only life. And so to say, like, this is your fault for something you have, like, no memory of?
Yeah.
That is so sad. That's so scary, though. And, like, obviously the girl had it the worst, but, like, also just imagine, like, her family, like, knowing that, like, these things are happening to your little girl, and, like, what can you do about it?
Right. Yeah, I'm sure that was extremely hard on the family. What I find most interesting about this case, about both cases actually, is about how violent it got, because I've heard like typical things like my drawer opened, or there's muddy footprints, or, you know, just like very small but like still aggressive things, like they've thrown rocks at people and thrown furniture, whatever. I've heard that before. What I've never heard is 50 needles inserted into one person's ankle.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like all at once, or I don't know. She just spontaneously combust and like caught fire.
Yeah.
This other ghost in the cemetery just breaking bones. I don't know. I just find that very interesting. Like,
that's so scary.
It's a whole new level I haven't even like thought about really. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for our show. Did you have anything else? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to our episode 5 of whatever the name of this podcast episode is on Twisted Manor. If you guys want to submit stories, like full-length submissions, you can email us at twistedmanor.sub@gmail.com. You can also submit genres if you want to hear a specific theme for an episode. Don't forget to click those links in our Instagram bio and get some merchandise. Tell us a little submission, and we'll read and give out anything that you guys are asking for. So thank you guys again for listening. We'll see you guys in the next episode of Twisted Manor.